Hello, everyone. This is Roberto Lombardi, the Freddy Krueger from the Krueger Tales from Elm Street series, and you are listening to Elm Street Radio.
Sleep again.
Hello, Elm Street fans. This is Diandra here for Elm Street Radio, and I'm joined by my co-host, Paige Joy. Hi, Paige.
Hey, Diandra. How are you?
I am doing great. So, Paige, tell everybody a little bit about yourself. This is your first time as my co-host.
And I'm so excited for it. I am Paige Joy. I'm one of the writers and the director of Don't Fall Asleep, the fan film. I'm also a vlogger. I'm a cosplayer. I'm a hairstylist, photographer, a writer, kind of a jack of all trades. And I just love Nightmare. I love Nightmare on Elm Street.
Well, it's awesome. And you're definitely going to hear more with myself and Paige, because Paige and I are going to be bringing you the nightmares from now on here on Elm Street Radio. And for our first episode together, we have a very special guest, someone who I have admired for a very long time, since I first saw him in the first Krueger Tales from Elm Street film series entry, Roberto Lombardi. Hi, Roberto.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Roberto. Yay.
Hey, Paige.
I fangirled a little bit.
I think we're all fangirling. We're like, yay, it's Roberto.
But, I'm fanboying over you two also, because I really enjoyed Don't Fall Asleep.
Oh, thank you, Roberto. That means a lot.
Thank you so much.
And as everybody knows, and I mentioned, Roberto plays the infamous Freddy Krueger in the Krueger Tales from Elm Street series. He's also in The Nightmare Ends on Halloween 2. Roberto, talk a little bit about playing Freddy. How did you get started with that?
Actually, very organically, totally unplanned. I was coming back from either it was a film shoot or, excuse me, some kind of a film event in New York with the director of the series, Chris Notarilli, and we're coming back in the car, and he looks at me and he says, hey, I'm thinking of doing this little trilogy of prequel films with Michael and Jason and with Freddie. And he said, it'll be Freddie when he's alive and not burned. Would you be interested in doing it? And I kind of stared at him for about, a few seconds, and I went, what are you kidding? Of course I want to do it.
That is awesome. And I'll never forget when I first saw it come out and I saw you sitting there on the other side of that table. It was so freaky. It was actually, because being a Nightmare fan, you watch A Nightmare on Elm Street all the time and you just become infatuated with Freddie, and he doesn't really become scary anymore. There are times when you might go, oh, yeah, he's pretty scary there. But when I watched Krueger for the first time, I actually was really disgusted with Freddie for the very first time in a long time. When you're on the ground and then you do the tongue thing, that made my skin crawl.
That was an ad lib, by the way.
That was perfect.
The tongue thing. It just popped into my head to do it, but that was a lot of cramming a lot of filming into a few hours worth of work for the interrogation for that. And it was both of myself and Sean Parr, who played Lieutenant Thompson. We really had to be on because we only had that room for but a few hours to get everything done. And it was a really good experience. really excited to do it, and I was also really scared to do it in a way, because I just felt people are so passionate about Freddie and Elm Street, and especially with Robert. And to step into somebody's shoes and do something like that, I figured at least half the people are going to hate me. And it really wasn't that way at all. It was actually a good 90-something% of people have been really supportive. Of course, there's haters, but, I was just surprised at the support.
I know for me, when I first saw that, I was super excited because I hadn't really known anything about like fan films or anything yet. And when you came on the screen and you had that first grin, I was like, oh, they're going there. I was like, they're really going to do this. And the performance just it was amazing. The one that I love the most is Krueger, Another Tale. And where, you're as Freddie and you're in the car and you're stalking the little girl on the swing set. And it just cinematically was shot so well. It was acted so well. And I just was like, this needs to be a series. And I, as a fan, was so thankful that you guys did turn it into a series. It just was beautiful.
Well, thank you. It took us all by surprise how well received it was. And we were happy to do. We were going to stop after the fourth one, but, fan demand actually demanded the fifth one. And we figured, you know what, let's show a little bit of when he gets released. And, people have been writing in and asking about me being in makeup, and not a mask, but makeup. And so we did it. But it's been great.
Yeah, and your performance also, and everyone is really great. I think another one that really gave me chills was a walk down Elm Street. And I'm pretty sure that's the exact wording. I think it was the third one, but it's the one where you have the monologue that's the narration that's going on over it, and you're talking about being a wolf in sheep's clothing, and there you are among all of these people in Springwood, and you're interacting with them. You're interacting with Marge, and she tells you about Nancy. And and you got to shoot right in front of the house, and you got to shoot these films in several locations that are featured in the Nightmare movies. What was that like? That had to be pretty surreal.
That yes. First of all, now I don't know if either of you have been to the house, but
we have not. But I think that's something that's definitely on our goal, like our bucket list soon.
Yeah, you two have to go there because, you go. It's a suburban street. It's right off the boulevard. It's on a suburban street. It's surrounded by houses that could be anywhere, and then you see the house, and there's just this feeling you get. It's like almost like a tingling feeling, like, oh my God, I'm actually here. And then for us, it was like, oh my God, I'm actually here, and I'm gonna make a movie here.
Yeah, that's amazing.
An Elm Street movie, so
yeah. And the whole story of Freddy Krueger is really interesting, and since the New Line movies showed pretty much all Burn Freddy, little bits and pieces, plus in Freddy's Nightmares, there's a couple of books out there that talk about Freddy's story before then, but they contradict a lot of what ended up happening in the movies. And of course, the films are absolutely, completely true. They take precedence over any other materials that have been written. And fans will sometimes talk about how they would rather it be like Freddy was in the first movie, and he was a loner. And that was highlighted in The Life and Death of Freddy Krueger, which talked about some pretty interesting aspects that I would kind of like for us to discuss, just the different elements of Freddy himself, because he's such an iconic character. But in this short film, or in this short story, it talked about how Weston Hills, before Weston Hills actually became a thing, there was a small mental institution at 1428 Elm Street, and that's where Amanda had Freddie, and so that was his house. And then they went to Weston Hills after that, and of course he was adopted by an abusive pimp, and he was kind of a loner in that. And then there's the other book by Andy Mangels, who wrote some of the comics, that talked about Freddie living at 1665 Elm Street, I believe it
Yeah.
is. Yeah,
Yeah.
and because you know you're wondering why the heck would the Thompsons move into this house of the man who killed all these kids, but it kind of makes sense to cover it up. It's a pretty twisted way of covering it up, but nevertheless, it's an interesting take, and so it kind of took people by surprise that, you know, Freddie was a family man. But like, Roberto, what do you think about that? Do you think it's actually, what are your thoughts on Freddie as the loner versus Freddie as the father figure, and as you had put it in the films, the wolf in sheep's clothing?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say I enjoy both versions of Freddie, either being the loner, the drifter. I enjoy that version of it because it really does tie very well into the first movie.
Mm-hmm.
But as you said, there's a whole series of movies, original Elm Street movies, that delve away from that. So for me and for Chris, when we were making these, we went with the wolf in sheep's clothing version of Freddie because we wanted to encompass everything as the entire series. We didn't want to leave parts of the series out. So I prefer that version of Freddie. And to me, yeah, I think that a homeless drifter is scary. I really do. But for me and for us, I think that your next door neighbor, and you not knowing that your next door neighbor who has a wife and a child is secretly out going out at night with his brim hat pulled down and abducting your children and doing God knows what to them before he disposes of them.
Yeah.
100%.
Frightening to me.
Yeah.
It's the scariest thing ever because it's like you don't know who's next door. You don't know who's getting, you know, the mail at the mailbox, and you really don't know these people. You think that you know these people, and you say hi to them every day, like, you know, in a walk through Elm Street where he talks to Marge and says hi to her, and she's very pregnant, and lo and behold, you know, cut to 15 years later, Freddie's killing, you know, attempting to kill his daughter, you know.
Yeah.
So
and kills Marge.
And kills Marge, exactly. Yeah. So you never know who is next door, and I think that is very scary. I think that is something that psychologically really works well.
Yeah, and when Freddie is talking to Catherine, he's perceived as this loving father. You know, he's out there in the diner having time with her, and she says, "Can we do this?" And, you know, Roberto, you say, "Not," and you just come in with this fatherly angle that seems so completely natural and loving, but also a really good father. But deep down, you know what kind of person this is, and it's almost. I've always wanted to get into Freddie's mindset in that part of him, because he kills people. He kills kids like Catherine all the time. I mean, she is like the perfect example of a victim that he would go after, and yet he has her there with him. I wonder what goes through his mind sometimes.
Well, I think even in Freddie's Dead, when you know, with the flashback with Robert and Catherine, and when he kills when he kills Loretta, even his treatment of Catherine in that movie, he's like, you know, he was very careful with how he spoke to Catherine. The way that Robert delivered that line, you know, telling her to go inside and mommy's okay and all that stuff, it was very cautious of not upsetting her. Mm-hmm. So I'm
going to go out on a limb and say that, like, the Krueger Tales films, the ones with like Catherine and stuff, I feel like that's almost, well, I mean, it is scarier. It's more chilling than Freddy's Dead. I wish that's somewhere that like Freddy's Dead would have went. I feel like they were a little too comical, and I also feel like I didn't want to feel bad for Freddy. I didn't want Freddy to be the victim, and Freddy's Dead almost made me feel that way towards him. Like, I was like cheering him on. Like, yeah, you were an abused child. You were this, you were that. Like, go ahead, kill some people. You deserve to, you know. As to where, like, the Krueger Tales films, it shows a deeper, darker, like, demented side of him. And I almost wish that Freddy's Dead would have went there with the story. Like, still being, you know, empathetic with Catherine and protective of his daughter and all that stuff. But then really show the psychological side of him
Well, I don't like to
Yeah,
say anything bad about any of the movies because I
No.
truly do like all of the movies. But that particular movie, it was my least favorite one.
Yeah, it holds
I
a
love them
special
all too.
Yeah, it holds a special place in my heart because it was the first one I watched all the way through. And so there's part of me that's like clinging on it, like, don't put it in last place, Diandra, no. But if I really have to think about where I would place it, it would be at the end because there are some very creepy elements of the film, particularly in relation to Freddie and this life that he has because yeah, sure, there's the loner, but it's almost at the same time kind of predictable. There's nothing scarier than the serial killer who's charming and who you could trust because that is when they get to you, when you let your guard down. And that's what that's what Freddie does in general. When he gets you in your sleep, he's got you at your most vulnerable point, which is when you are sleeping and you think you're safe after a long day, but you're not.
Exactly.
It's chilling.
Right, and the other thing, while we're talking about character and everything, I think the other reason, in the past, like prior, you really didn't have killers that said a lot, did a lot. They just kind of ran up and killed you, or lumbered up and killed you. And with Freddie, you had somebody who was not only smart, but talked to you and taunted you and said absolutely horrific things to you and made, really belittled you before he dispatched you. And I can't think of anybody who ever did that before. It was just brilliant storytelling, in my opinion.
I think that's why he's so popular. I think that's why, the character is just so loved even 30 plus years today, because he wasn't just a man in a mask, chasing you. He had that swagger, that personality, that depth to his character. And I think that Freddie is one of the most scariest, intriguing villains of all time.
Yeah, and you, together with the fact that you put in the right actor for the role, and there's been, I don't know if people know this, but there have been quite a few actors who have actually played Freddie in some sort of film or television presentation, even if it was a comedy. But there's been a lot. And, of course, Robert's the original one, and he's going to be the template for which everybody's going to be compared to. But he was really the absolute perfect right person for that role. And even to this day, you can see how he really relishes the role and how he treats fans who are into the role.
Yeah.
But really well done, really good casting. And taking a chance because Robert wasn't extremely well known at that point either.
And I know the stories of people who go, that guy, you want that guy to be Freddy Krueger, and he just came out and he just blew everyone away. And Robert made Freddie, of course there's that, Robert made Freddie who he is, but even in the physical appearance of Freddie, how Robert fought for the tattered sweater and for the fedora and just different elements like that. Yeah. Robert really helped make him who he is. But that brings me to a question about your Freddie. Like, we have very little exposure, realistically, in looking at the broad spectrum of Freddie, even outside of film, but in books or the comic books, it's usually Freddie as the nightmare genius, the guy that terrorizes everybody who sleeps. But we have very little of Freddie before that point in time when he was the Springwood slasher. And so for you, when you were going in to bring that Freddie to life, how did you prepare for it?
Oh, okay. Well, that's a really great question because there was a lot of preparation into it. As far as the first thing I thought was, for me, I'm realizing, all right, you're not going to have any makeup on in this movie at all. And we're talking about the first one now, of course. You're not going to have any makeup on. So you're going to have to translate to an audience who are huge fans of this character and of the actor who played him. You're going to have to translate to them. You're going to have to make them understand that this person you're playing is Fred Krueger with no makeup. So the first thing I did is I didn't want to flat out just copy Robert. It's just not something I would do. But I thought it was necessary to look at what Robert did, and I used 3 of the movies for that. I used the original one, the first one. I used Dream Warriors, and I used New Nightmare, because those are my 3 favorite ones. But
awesome.
All Nancy films, might I add?
Yes. And I purposely didn't want to look again at Freddy's Dead that has all the flashback stuff in it. I didn't want to do that because I didn't want to come off like I was copying anything that Robert did when he was alive in the character. Mm-hmm. So just little mannerisms. I wanted to make it, some of the makeup ticks that he did when he was the Dream Demon. I wanted to put just a few of them in there so that you would be recognizable as the character. But mainly, I kind of researched sadists, masochists, child abductors, and serial killers for their mannerisms. And I don't know how much you pay attention, but in the first movie, I'm handcuffed and I'm talking to Thompson, and I'm kind of moving my head back and forth, kind of almost in a serpentine kind of manner. And
yes, I did notice that.
And I'm wringing my hands a lot. Those are all physical symptoms of people who are sadists, masochists, things like that. I tried to work stuff like that in.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it was a good 2-month preparation of really looking at a character type before we did it, and then again putting little bits of Robert in there with the way I pronounced some of the words. There was a lot, even to the point within the first one we dyed my hair a lighter color. And then we abandoned that after that. We said, if we're going to do a second one, third one, whatever, let's get away from trying to make it look like Robert, and let's have it look like Roberto doing it. So that's
I often refer to this when I talk about other roles and other fan films. I talk about how that the actor becomes the character, not necessarily the representation of the person. So Diandra became Nancy, not Heather, and you became Freddie, not Robert. And I think as the series went on, as the Krueger series went on, you really did see this as Freddie. This wasn't like watching Roberto Lombardi playing Freddie. This was Freddie on screen. And I think that, major props to you for that, because it is really hard to do that, because a lot of people want to go in and just do an interpretation and just try to mimic the previous actor because they think that that's what fans want. But I feel like as a fan, I respect it so much more when you really just make the character your own.
Well, thank you very much. I very much appreciate that, because you're right. And I think that most hardcore fans, they don't want somebody coming in and just talking like this. And they don't want that. They want you to come out and do your thing. They want it to be Freddie, but they want it to be your version of Freddie.
Yeah.
And Diandra, I have to tell you, what Paige just said is absolutely correct. When I watch, especially the opening of Don't Fall Asleep, when you're being brought in and you're struggling and I'm not seeing Diandra there. I'm seeing Nancy upset, out of her mind, coming right from her house after her mother's been killed. That's all I see. And that I don't see you there. I see Nancy.
Wow, that means a lot to me. Thank you so much, Roberto. Not just because you played Freddie and you did such a pardon my French, but a damn good job, but also because you are quite a seasoned actor, and so that means a lot. So thank you very much. And I actually had something else to ask you, and I'm so flattered that I forgot, so it'll come back to me. Yeah, gosh, what was it? Paige, do you have anything?
So speaking of being a seasoned actor and stuff, I know this was kind of a little off topic, but could you talk about your next project, The Watcher of Park Avenue?
I could, especially since Diandra is going to have a voice role in it.
Right? How perfect is that?
And it also does tie into what we're talking about, since Amanda Wyss and Lisa Wilcox are also in the movie. The Watcher of Park Avenue was written and directed by a very nice, incredibly great guy named Ryan Burton. And it is about a serial killer. It's I would call it like more of a thriller, like a horror thriller, than like than a supernatural thing. It's based in reality, and it is about this killer who is murdering people in the Park Avenue area. And the cop who's assigned to the case is a seasoned detective, a female detective. Brian's movies are very female-centric. And Amanda Wist plays the detective. And she has to solve who the Watcher is. That's what he's being dubbed, the Watcher. She has to solve who it is. And there's a lot of, I don't want to give too much of a plot point away, but there's some personal issues with Amanda's character. And there's some personal issues with the other lead character, Changu, Cardbo. She plays Blanche in it. Their two worlds kind of intersect over the Watcher. And then there's kind of a reveal at the end. But it's a really good murder mystery thriller. And it was a thrill to work on. And I'm excited that Diandra is also going to be in it, too.
Could you tell us a little bit about your role in that, or is it kind of hush-hush right now?
No. The name of my character and everything has been posted and everything. And, God bless Ryan. He just, comes up with this quirky stuff. My character is Officer England.
That's right.
That's brilliant.
And
that's so brilliant.
Ryan's just like, hey, I'd really like you to be in this. It's kind of a cameo type of thing, and I want you to play a cop, and I want you to be Officer England. And I was like, you know what? I don't even care what the movie's about. I'm coming up and doing this. But he sent me the script, and I read the whole thing, and I was like, this is damn good. And so unfortunately, I did not work with Lisa Wilcox because she was on different days and, in a different scene. But I did get to work with Amanda, and she's just the sweetest, nicest person I've ever worked with on a set.
Isn't she? She's like the most genuine person I think I've ever met. She's just so sweet.
She is, and I feel like I talk to her, and I have to try and match her level of kindness because she's so kind. She makes me want to be a better person, and she's like, "Oh, thank you," and I'm like, "No, thank you for being so wonderful."
Yeah. But I could tell you, the days that I worked with her, she went up and she knew everybody's name, and she was talking to everybody on the crew, and we'd be in the green room together, and she would ask everybody, what their background was and what they were doing after this. She was genuinely interested in everybody who was there, and God bless her. She was just a wonderful example of celebrity. Let's put it that way.
All right, I've got to ask this. It is. I know it's probably against the professional code of actor conduct, but did she know that you played Freddie in Krueger in any sort of fan films involving A Nightmare on Elm Street?
When we first started talking, no. She was aware of the fan films, and she was, and we all get tagged in a lot of Twitter posts, all of us together.
Yeah.
And she was aware of those. But when I mentioned the Krueger series and the fan films and that they were prequels, she's like, "Oh, you're that guy. You're the Freddie." I'm like, "Yes." So she didn't know it was me, but she knew who it was. She knew the movies. So yes.
That is too cool. Have you been to any conventions, or are you planning to go to any sort of events? I believe there is that Dream Warriors event that's in your neck of the woods-ish. Right? Are you?
Yes. Honestly, I haven't been to a lot of events, and that's my bad right there. I should be attending things like that. I've only gone to a couple of things in my area, and honestly, it was a little scary for me because I'm just going to enjoy myself. I'm not there as a guest or anything. I'm just going, and invariably, and this is not me patting myself on the back or anything. This is just what happens. Invariably, somebody will go, "You, it's you. You're that guy," and I'm like, "Okay." So, but I am going to do it. Actually, Ryan from Watcher is going to be going to a couple events to promote Watcher of Park Avenue, and I'm going to try and tag along with him on a couple of them. And one of them is very Elm Street centric.
Oh, well. Oh, is it with? Oh,
I know. I'm like, what? I'm like, what do we
can
say?
I go? I want to. I mean, I know I've talked to you for a very. I mean, we've known each other for quite some. I think as soon as pretty much Krueger came out, I was like, who is this guy? And then I somehow found a way to make my way into your friend list.
You did, and you were also, if you'll recall, you were going to do a Nancy cameo in Nightmare Ends on Halloween too.
Yes, I was. No, we couldn't work it out, but I got a special thanks, which was still really nice of Chris to put me in at the end. But
Yes.
because I honestly, this out of the many years I've known you, this is the first time we've had the chance to talk, but I am definitely would love to meet you someday and to ironically grab some coffee.
Yes, and I'm a coffee head, so that would be perfect.
Oh, fantastic. All right. So any final thoughts between either of you that you would like to add? Roberto, anything else that you actually have coming up other than The Watcher of Park Avenue, which I know I'm very much looking forward to see come out?
Yeah, the only other thing I have coming out right now is it's a featurette of 3 shorts edited together called Masks. That'll be coming out in June and going to festival.
Oh, that's so cool.
That's awesome.
That is really, really cool. Paige, do you have any final questions for Roberto?
I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for coming on here and always being so supportive of us and just being, such a good friend and for entertaining us and being like just being you, I guess. I just want to say thank you for being you. And for me, it's been just such a pleasure just to like sit back and just listen to you guys talk.
And likewise
for
me.
Likewise for me too.
But, yeah.
You guys, I've been friends with you guys for a while, and now I get to be a fan of your work and your productions that you're going to be doing, and I love supporting everybody. I always think there's room for everybody to do everything in this business. Oh, and there is one thing I would like to bring up.
Oh yeah.
And I talked to Kevin Roach about this briefly when I chatted with him.
God, I love
Ladies
Kevin
and gentlemen, I would like to announce right now there is no rivalry between Kevin and Ethan and me and Chris. We all like each other.
I think, what did I word it as the one day I said there's room for us all at the table?
Yes.
That, like, how cool is it that, like, all like 3 big productions, we all get along really well. Yeah. And, like, there's no drama, no beef. And I love that. I love that, we can all say that and all respect each other and just be friends.
Exactly. And let's be honest. We're doing fan films. None of us owns the material.
Yeah.
All of us are doing it for the love of it.
We're all going to get in trouble by Warner.
We're going to get sued. One of us goes
down, we're all going down.
We're going down as a ship. We're going to play My Heart Will Go On, and we will go down together.
Well, I think that would have happened by now if it was going to happen. And, I know I haven't heard anything from you guys that Warner's was after you, and I haven't heard anything from Nathan or Kevin. So, and we certainly haven't gotten anything from Warner Brothers. But we're not making any money. We're just doing it for the love of it. And if you really think of it, Warner Brothers should be happy that we're keeping their characters alive.
Exactly. Oh, and I remember what I wanted to say, Roberto, is... Oh, crap, I forgot it again. Oh, my goodness. This is just a nightmare. Dun, dun, dun. I remember before I forget, but it's actually along the lines of the last point, which is it's true that there is room for everybody at the table. And myself, and I know Paige, and I know all of these huge Nightmare fans who just eat anything up that is related to A Nightmare on Elm Street, and none of us go back and forth and try to compare. We just love it all. And each fan film is different and has a different tone. It has a different Freddie. It has a different story. It's executed in different ways. I mean, there's just so many different aspects of it that it's all interesting and it's great to talk about. And that's one thing that I want to also comment on with your performance. This is why it was originally brought up, but your performance has the essence of Freddie. it's not Robert, but it's Freddie. And I feel that there are a lot of times, like Paige said, when people just want to copy, but the most important thing, and I guess this is kind of a public service announcement for anybody listening who's completely stuck on Robert. I mean, we all love Robert here, but I don't want Freddie to die because Robert isn't playing him, because you and Kevin and William and all these different people who have played Freddie have shown that you can definitely have somebody other than Robert play Freddie and do a compelling interpretation, because it's not Robert, it's Freddy Krueger. And as long as you capture that core essence of what Freddie is, who he is and what he represents, you have a great story to tell that's worth watching, and I think any fan will love.
Jumping in on that really quick, I think the reason why it works is because the actors who play the role of Freddie and the writers who have written the roles of Freddie, they respect the franchise. They respect the fans. They respect the character. It's really about respect, and I think that's why it works, and that's why they're so accepted. Because as we saw with the remake that shall not be named, it almost wasn't like respecting the fans. I think that it would have been more well received and more well taken if they would have truly done it for the fans. Because Jackie Earle Haley was a great actor.
Yes, he is.
He's such a great actor, but it just didn't work. And so Confessions and Krueger and Don't Fall Asleep. And I feel like those work because we all as a whole respect the character and respect the fandom.
Right.
Well, yeah. And I think, going even further with that, I think Nathan and Kevin really respected the original Wes Craven vision for Nightmare. I think they did a damn good bang-up job doing Freddie in that way as the Drifter. I think they really nailed it with that.
Yeah.
And the reason, and for us, we did the exact opposite. We did Wes's vision, and then we did all of the sequels' vision all combined into one storyline. So, and how I looked at that was, they gave the fans one version, we gave the fans another version, and there's no reason why the fans can't love both versions.
Exactly.
And it shows. The love shows for both of them. Yeah. I don't ever see anyone pit them against each other. I think that they love them separately for each entity for what it is. And I know I do. I know I love it.
I had a long discussion with Kevin about how funny we thought it was that certain people were trying to pit the two of us against each other, but that's another story.
You're both such wonderful people. I've had the pleasure of meeting Kevin, and he was instantly one of my favorite people that I'd probably ever met at a convention. Of course, I still haven't met you, Roberto, but we've talked about that. It's like beating a dead horse someday. But, I mean, it's all in the story. It's like the different books and comic books that are out there. It's all different interpretations, and some of them don't exactly go along with the films, but you're excited about it. Any small A Nightmare on Elm Street thing that comes out in any interpretation, and Nathan took that one side and you and Chris took this other side, but they work and they're wonderful, and you want to watch them over and over and over again, and you want to share it with people. And there are people out there I see that will take these fan films and they will have movie marathons with people and pass them along. It's amazing, and it's an honor. I know for us, when it happened with Don't Fall Asleep, it was an honor.
Well, and that's a well-deserved honor for you guys, because let's be honest. You guys did something that nobody's done before. Where did you ever hear of a Nancy fan film before? Right. Never. Mm-mm. You did, and you bridged a gap between the first and the third movie. Nobody did that. That was all your writing, your ideas, your acting, everything. That to me, that is making a fan film right there. It's not.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's not. You're welcome. You're very welcome. It's not imitating what's been done before you. It's coming up with your own, thing, but staying within the character. Mm-hmm. And we're talking about people that we wanted to meet. I'm Facebook friends with Robert, but I really want to meet him. I would love to ask him more about the character, because
Oh.
I could talk about Freddie's character all day long from my own perspective, but I'd love to get his perspective.
Oh, that's interesting. I'll have to remember that for the future.
Yeah, make note of that.
I'm gonna write that down.
There might be something we're working on. No, I think that would be great because I do know that Robert has stated in the past that he's a fan of the fan films. That he has seen them and that he likes fan films. Yeah. And so it would almost be interesting to see what he would do meeting you. Because I think that, if you've seen him, he would probably recognize you and be like, man, like you did such a great job. And
oh God, I hope he would say that. It would be terrible if you had walked in, oh, you sucked.
I can't remember who I heard it from, but I definitely heard that Robert, he really liked what you did. I heard it somewhere. I'm not making this up. I definitely heard it somewhere in passing.
No, because I did too, and I know that he's talked about the fan films that he enjoys them because I think for Robert he enjoys any interpretation of Freddie that continues on because yes, this is Wes's story and this was Wes's character, but it really was Robert's baby. It really was. It's defined his career. It's defined who he is. So any imitation type of thing, like any art form of it, I think he's just going to love it.
Yeah.
Well, that makes me feel good that he said that he liked it. And I knew that, I think that Wes saw them too.
Oh, wow.
That kind of got back to us too, that Wes saw them and liked them. And that just, anytime the original people who made something see something that you did and kind of gives you the thumbs up, it's, that's major to me, and it's something that you don't take lightly and you appreciate a lot.
Yeah.
But we're going to talk a lot about Freddie's character, and somehow we didn't do that.
Well, there's a lot to be said about Freddie, and so we would love to have you back on, Roberto. Anytime, really. Just come on. Tomorrow, come back next week. Because
I would love to come back.
Yeah, no, totally. That is going also in my notebook. Actually, I'm making a mental note of it because how could I possibly forget that? Because this, like Paige had said earlier, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today about your role as Freddie and delving into the series as a whole. And just for being really wonderful, because whenever something is going on, I have to say, you're always a beacon of light. Even though you play Freddy Krueger, you are always a positive presence no matter where you are online. And so it's a joy to have you today and just to know you, Roberto, because you're extremely talented and you are a genuinely wonderful human being and you deserve all the success in the world.
100% agree.
Thank you guys so much. That really means a lot to me coming from you two because you know how much I like and respect the two of you.
Oh, thank you, Roberto.
Thank you.
All right, we're getting super sappy here. But
I love you guys.
I love you, Rainbow.
I love you, man.
All right, so I think that about wraps up this episode of Elm Street Radio, and like I'd said, we are definitely going to have you back on, Roberto. So once again, Roberto, thank you so much for being here. Thanks, Paige, for being my co-host and for being awesome.
No problem. Thanks, guys, for being here, and thanks for doing this endeavor.
And the last
and thank
line,
you both. Yeah,
of course, and of course, as always, as we close out Elm Street Radio's episode, we like to say several special words that Nancy says over the phone to Glenn. And do you guys know what those are? It begins with a W and it ends with, whatever you do, don't fall asleep. So, so to close out this episode, I would like for all of us on the count of 3 to say that infamous line. And here we go. 1, 2, 3. Whatever you do, don't fall asleep. Awesome. And we will catch you next time on Elm Street.
to Freddie.